Once again, it's your girl, Sista Midwife, coming at you with a live video today. And today, I'm not even prepared with a lot of comments. I needed to just come in today because, like I was just mentioning, a lot of times I'll get an inspiration. Somebody will call me with a concern or a complaint or a question, and immediately I'll say to myself, okay, I got to do a live about this, but then I got to wait. I want to wait until this is right and that's right, the timing is right, the lighting is right, and all of that. I said, I'm not going to do that anymore, because when the inspiration is there, I need to bring these messages. So today, you can see the title on Facebook. You know, I'm talking about don't let your fatigue get in the way, and knowing how to advocate for yourself when you're pregnant. And it really, literally, your life and your baby, because your baby's life could depend on what you do. So today I got a phone call. This is not just to talk about this one case, but a general scenario. I don't see clients a lot in terms of clinical care, but I do take a lot of phone calls and do a lot of consultations with pregnant families, as well as with doulas who are working with families. They'll call me for advice on certain situations. And recently, man, I've been getting so many different various phone calls, and it's driving me crazy. I'm trying to figure out, what are they teaching in medical school? What are they teaching in nursing school? Who's listening? Who's learning? And why is it that moms and families have to become their own medical providers? And it's like, that's just what it is at this point. We need to be educating our own children, and we need to be birthing our own babies, right? Like, that's just the real deal. At any rate, one of the things that has happened today is I have been following this mom for a while. We're in touch, and she's had this blood pressure thing, up and down, up and down. So if you don't know about preeclampsia is a blood pressure disease of pregnancy. There is something that's called gestational hypertension, meaning that your blood pressure goes up, but you don't have full-blown preeclampsia. But you can also get preeclampsia. Eclampsia, E-C-L-A-M-P-S-I-A, is a word that means seizure. So preeclampsia basically is saying that you have the signs and symptoms that your body could get sicker with this pregnancy, and you could move into a seizure. But if we get you delivered, in moms who have real preeclampsia, that is a real indication for an induction. You would get induced, and then you'll get induced, and you could have your baby. Your preeclampsia would generally go away. Preeclampsia can also show up in the postpartum period, where we have moms who've been discharged, they go home, there are blood pressure spikes, they continue to have blood pressure issues, and they have problems that way. So just as a sidebar, a little background to understand what preeclampsia is. So there's a young woman that I know who I've been kind of talking with back and forth, and her blood pressure has been kind of up and down, up and down. Is it white coat syndrome? When she goes into the office, it's a little bit elevated, but she's also been checking it at home. So this morning I get a message from her. She's letting me know that it is elevated, and that her hands are really swollen, which is another sign of concern when your hands are swollen, really like unnecessarily swollen, right? So she went in to see the provider. Now, prior to this, I've been asking her, what tests are they doing? What are they doing with you to make sure that it's simply a little elevated blood pressure and not preeclampsia? We want to make sure that you're not getting sick. And it's a crazy thing to be in this space, because, I'm advocating for home birth. I'm advocating for natural birth, normal physiological birth. Don't touch me. I don't need you. But sometimes, y'all, we need medical care. And if you have high blood pressure, and particularly preeclampsia, that is an indication for high risk medical care. And even if it doesn't really go high risk, but that you need an elevated level of care for your pregnancy. So she has this elevated blood pressure, and I'm concerned, and I'm asking her, I said, well, they did test. That was like a month ago. They haven't done any new testing. And I said, did they ever ask you to do a 24-hour urine, where you collect your urine over 24 hours? And she's like, nope, none of that stuff. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, 24-hour urine, that might be old school. Maybe they don't do that anymore. I don't do high-risk pregnancy work pretty much anymore. So a lot of what I used to do may or may not still be relevant. Oh, but it is. And as the story continues, you'll watch it unfold. So I'm talking to her. I'm asking her what's going on. And then I discover that she's seeing Dr. A, but every time she goes to the office to see Dr. A, she never gets to physically see Dr. A, right? She sees a resident, and then a different resident, and then a different resident, and then a different resident. So I said, wait a minute. I said, you are no longer a normal pregnant mom. You have concerns. You're high risk. You have this going on, that going on. There's a couple other things, not just the blood pressure. And I was like, it is unacceptable and inappropriate for you to only see residents when you go to the doctor's office. You need to demand from them that you see the real physician, not the one who's still learning, not the one who needs to get checked off, not the one who has to go in the conference room and ask for permission to make an order, but the doctor who is certified, board certified, to take care of you. So week after week, appointment after appointment, this is still not happening. So her next appointment is tomorrow, but she goes to the hospital today, and of course her blood pressure is even more elevated, and she sends me a text to let me know she's going home. So I'm like, you got a blood pressure of 140 over 90 something, and they're sending you home. What kind of testing have they done? So I called her on the phone because I've been trying to explain to her, you have got to advocate strongly for yourself. And that's one of the other messages that I want to give in this video today. I know that when you're pregnant and you're going from office to office and up the hall, down the hall, you're feeling uncomfortable, you're at the end of your pregnancy, you are tired, maybe you've had 3 and 4 different doctor visits, maybe you've tried to call this one and that one, you're sick of getting labs drawn, you're sick of being told no, you're sick of the doors being closed in your face. But let me tell you something, we cannot allow fatigue to stop us from fighting for the health of our lives and our babies. Because when you get fatigued and you stop knocking on doors and you stop demanding that they tell you what you need to know, you will be in trouble. The reality is there are so many things that are happening. They'll tell you, oh, it's normal. I don't want to know it's normal. I want to know, what are my numbers? Sidebar, I had a conversation with a woman with an amniotic fluid level that was low, and they scheduled her for an induction. So she DMs me and she's asking for advice. I don't normally talk to people who I do not know, that I just meet on social media, but I decided to give her a call. So she's telling me that her AFI was 7. That means she has an amniotic fluid number of 7, which is, I mean, she's at the end of her pregnancy. So far as I know, it could be that, right? My number that I've always known in my head was always 5. At 5, they really look at induction. Before 5, they may monitor you more closely. So she wants to not have an induction on Thursday. Now, mind you, her appointment was like on Monday, and they scheduling her for an induction on Thursday. So that right there lets you know it's not an emergency, because if it's an emergency, you're going to schedule me for an induction today. You're going to send me from the clinic, doctor's office, in to get my induction, but you sent me to my house, so you're letting me know right here that it's not an emergency. So why am I getting induced on Thursday? So before I said anything to her, I said, okay, so you don't want to be induced. I said, what have you learned about low amniotic fluid? And she immediately says, well, I did all kinds of research, and everything I found said the number 5, and I'm at 7, so I don't want to be induced. Exactly. So if the number is 5, why are they saying 7? And I said, well, my advice to you would be, when you go back in, you tell them what you found. You let them know that this is what I found. This is what I'm hearing. Why are you inducing me at 7? When the AFI that is recommended for induction is a 5. And so a lot of times providers get aggravated when we use what we call Dr. Google to answer questions, right? I'm not saying that you should Google something and take every bit of advice that you find on Google. No, you should not. You should not read a blog and all of a sudden think you have a medical degree. You should not read a post, even if it's from the Mayo Clinic or from the CDC or whatever. Just because you read something online, if you hear me say it in the video, don't mean it's everything, right? That's just a piece of the information that you want to have to get the specifics about your care. But when we become fatigued and we start taking no for an answer, so back to the original young sister I'm talking about, right? So visit after visit, the only person she's seeing is residents. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. It is inappropriate, and you need to see the regular physician. So even though she did a little bit of attempting to advocate for herself, she's tired, she doesn't feel like fighting them, and so she still hasn't seen the regular physician. So today she's at the hospital with a ridiculous blood pressure that I think is ridiculous, that you're sending her home with all of this history. And I'm like, really, they're sending you home? And I'm texting her, and I said, no text, call her. So I pick up the phone and I call her, and she was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm talking to the nurse right now, right? So immediately, while I'm calling her to ask the question, oh, there's a change in plan. I said, what's the change in plan? She's like, well, now they've decided to keep me here at the hospital so they could do what? A 24-hour urine. The same thing I've been asking about for 2 weeks now. When were they going to do a 24-hour urine? So what I believe happened and what she confirmed, right, was that residents again saw her. They had written discharge orders, and if the nurses had moved 5 minutes faster before the orders came from the real physician, she would have been on her way home. But now instead, they realized, wait a minute, we were wrong. We need to do this 24-hour urine. Man, look, it doesn't make sense to me that patients, that mothers and fathers and families have to be so like strategic and calculating about their care, but the reality is we do. They are not always doing everything. They are not dotting T's. They are not dotting I's and crossing T's. They're not doing it all the time, y'all. And it is unfortunate. There should be a way that we should be able to see a provider, know that we're getting prudent care, knowing that what they say to us is real and valid. But for so many various reasons, just pure stupidity and ignorance, laziness, malpractice, also financial, there are so many reasons why they do not do what should be done. And so unfortunately, until we are living in a society and we have a medical system that 100% is dotting I's and crossing T's and always really looking out for the best interest of the mothers and families, we got to do it for ourselves, y'all. We got to do it for ourselves. It's unfortunate, but it's the real deal. And this is for so many other things, but the medical system is definitely one of them. We cannot take what they're telling us at face value, whether that is pushing you against what you want or you want additional care. So like in this situation, I'm telling her, you need extra care. You need more testing. You need more information, right? But she was in fatigue. And I remember months ago, I encouraged her to change providers. But unfortunately, this was her third provider. So again, there's that fatigue, right? So because she was fatigued, seeing different providers back and forth, one side of town, another side of town, out of town, back in town, she was sick of changing providers. So now here we are at the end, and you have a raggedy doctor who you never see. You're dealing with raggedy residents who don't know what they're doing. And here you are all jacked up, trying to get the care that you need, having to advocate so strongly for yourself. So if you're also listening to this video and you're pregnant and you have a doula, a medical friend, or somebody telling you to change providers, take heed. Take a note of that. I know you're tired, mama. I know you're tired. It gets hard. You feel unheard. You feel like people aren't listening to you all the time. And unfortunately, that's what's happening right now. And we have to still just protect ourselves. This is why this is a community issue. We can't let folks go to the hospital and to these clinic visits by themselves, because we need another voice saying that we need another pair of eyes. I'm watching you. Remember that? Y'all remember that? That's what we need. We need somebody at every single visit. I see you. You need to make sure that you're getting a copy of your records when you go in by like your 28 weeks. You need a copy of your records. You want to know what has been happening. You want all your labs. You want everything, so that if at any time you try to change providers, you have questions, you have something available that you can use to be able to even get questions answered. I was helping a sister recently with another situation, and I'm asking her questions, and she's like, oh, I didn't ask that. They didn't ask that. I said, well, they didn't tell you? Well, no, they didn't tell me anything. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you nothing. So she ended up giving me the discharge records. And sure enough, all of the information that I was asking her, that I was looking for, it was in the discharge records. It was written in very clearly, but information that they never told the mom, that they never shared with her directly. They had written it in her records and they gave her a copy, but the mom hadn't read it. It was a traumatic situation. So reading through the records was not something that she felt comfortable or she was open to doing at that time. So she gave them to me. I read through the records and I was able to say, okay, it's right here. This is what they found. This is what they saw. This is the reality of the situation. But no one said it to her. And she didn't think to ask this specific question. And so they didn't say it. That's what happens. It's unfortunate, y'all. I don't like it. I'm not saying it's right. I know that it is what it is. So we cannot be fatigued. We have to be teams with our moms, with our cousins, with our relatives. We have to show up with our sisters. We have to be that second set of eyes. We have to go to our prenatal appointments with a notebook in hand. What did you say? How do I spell that? Can you spell that for me again? And when you get home, Google it. Can I get a few minutes? I'm going to call you back tomorrow about this, right? Google that stuff. No, don't take Google for your final answer, but you definitely use it for some research, because there is good information on the internet nowadays. Thank goodness, because a lot of times stuff is getting lost inside of these hospitals. All right, y'all. Like I said, I'm unscripted today, but I just had this word come to me and I was like, I got to go share it online. So, hey, y'all. Let me see if I have any questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Is it common to change providers at 36 weeks? So it is not common to change providers at 36 weeks, but it is not impossible, but it is difficult. If you have had a 100% perfectly easy pregnancy, all your lab tests are normal, everything's been easy breezy, it's more easy to change providers. If you've had anything going on, elevated blood pressure, amniotic fluid look odd, one of your labs was off, your blood sugar test was a little off, it's going to be way more difficult to change providers. It is best to change providers no later than third trimester, which starts at 28 weeks. That is the best thing. But after that, I mean, my latest time ever seeing a mom change provider was literally in labor. I was working with a young woman, this was out in California, and her doctor was telling her she had to have a C-section, and she didn't want one right then. And she was like, I don't think it's time. I want to labor some more. My baby is safe. I feel good. I want to keep pushing. And the doctor refused. He was like, and he was like, if you're going to be my patient, then we're going to have a C-section. And another physician who was on call, who was on the unit, like, he decided to take her on as a patient. That does not happen. That is so rare. There's a lot of politics involved in changing providers, especially in the hospital, like in labor. But this girl was able to negotiate that. So I'm not saying that you can't change your provider ever. Up to the moment of birth, you can change your provider. If you are having a normal pregnancy, again, you're 36 weeks, and you realize, wait a minute, they float me for the okie doke, and I want to have a home birth now. I want to have a natural birth. Sometimes midwives are more open and receptive to taking a transfer if you've had a low risk pregnancy. But if she's a nurse midwife and she's working inside of a hospital system, sometimes there are rules and policies about the fact that she cannot accept you as a new patient at 36 weeks. So we really want to do our best to identify the need to change providers way early in pregnancy so that we can change providers before 28 weeks. Also, with changing providers, don't ask your current provider for permission to get a new provider, because your current provider doesn't want you to go. So you want to make sure that if you want a new physician, you just find that new physician, or you find that new midwife, you make your transfer, they will send all of your records over. Be respectful, call your old physician, cancel the appointment. If you have an appointment coming up in 2 weeks and you know you're not going, call them and tell them, you know, oh, I've changed providers to Dr. So-and-so or the midwife so-and-so, and they'll transfer your records over. You don't have to get new lab work. Some people don't want to change providers because they think they're going to have to get new labs and all that. You can get your labs from your old results and, you know, transfer them over to your new provider. So that's not a big deal. Every now and then you'll have hospitals say, no, we need the test done here. That's in very rare, very high risk situations. For general prenatal labs testing, they can get that stuff from your previous provider. On Twitter, there is a thread where someone suggests if providers are refusing treatment of something, the patient should ask that a refusal is noted in their chart. Absolutely. If you refuse something, you can ask them to tell, you know what, I refuse to stay in bed. I want to get up and walk. Feel free to document that in your chart. They should document that in their chart. And if you want to do something and the doctor is forcing you through coercion to do something, absolutely tell them and document in your chart, so that if anything should come up later where you've said, but I told them not to do this, or I told them X, Y, and Z, absolutely let it be documented into chart. Also, off topic, I love your earrings. Thank you. I got these from Mwende, New Orleanians. Is it New Orleanians? Yes, follow them. They do pop-ups straight from the continent. Yeah, Mwende. Follow her. Frequency. She's a poet also. I remember you saying that. Okay, thank you. Okay, right on. All right, so that's it for me today. Let me see. Do we have anything I need to answer over here on Instagram, y'all? I don't think so. Sounds good. Love y'all. I'll be back another time for another live. If there's a topic that you want me to cover, feel free to shoot me not a DM. How can we do that? Because I don't do DM on Instagram and Facebook, y'all. That's a lie. On Instagram, I do. You could DM me on Instagram if you have a question you'd like me to cover in the live. I answer those, but not on Facebook. Not too much. Sorry. All right, y'all. Peace and love.